Welcome to our YouTube channel. In this video we will talk about the top 10 murders that went wrong. So before starting this video, like this video, and subscribe to this YouTube channel for future updates. Take a peek at our list of 10 murder cases that have been caught. You'll learn how forensics techniques aid in the conclusion of many cases, as well as how, on occasion, other factors propel a case forward. Number 10. Cold case murder of Krystal Beslanowitch, 1995. Solved through forensic technologies. A determined officer who was the original investigator in the 18-year-old murder of Krystal Beslanowitch in Utah assisted in bringing this case to a conclusion. Sheriff Todd Bonner couldn't let the case go, according to the Huffington Post. Beslanowitch died of a crushing hit to the head when she was 17 years old. Her body was discovered by the Provo River in 1995, where she worked as a prostitute. Investigators eventually got anywhere in 2013, when new forensic methods were utilized to retrieve touch DNA from the granite rock that crushed her head, which took a whole day. In actuality, the DNA extraction was made possible using a device known as a forensic vacuum. Joseph Michael Simpson, a resort bus driver in the area at the time, was found to have the same DNA. Simpson, now 46, was apprehended in September of this year in Florida. Number 9. The disappearance of Sherri Miller and Pam Jackson, 1971. Solved by a fisherman. This cold case, which has been unsolved since 1971, may have been helped by an alert fisherman. Sherri Miller and Pam Jackson, both 17, vanished in a 1960 Studebaker Lark while driving on country roads to a party at a gravel pit. A fisherman near the state's Brule Creek found an automobile submerged upside down in the water in September of 2013. The vehicle was pulled from the creek the next day, and bone remains, assumed to be those of the two girls, were discovered inside, according to NPR. According to NPR, the creek was less than half a mile from the gravel pit, where the girls were headed, and the license plate and a hubcap from the vehicle matched the vehicle the girls were driving, despite being extensively decomposed. Even while it appears like this 42-year-old cold case is about to be solved, it's possible that no one will ever know what happened to cause the Studebaker to end up in the stream. Number 8. Death of Pamela Shelley, 2001. Solved through a guilty plea. Pamela Shelley was found with a gunshot wound to the head in the Texas home she shared with her lover in 2001 and died en route to the hospital. She had recently divorced her husband and relocated with her two children from Arkansas to Texas to live with an old family friend, Ronnie Joe Hendrick. According to the Victoria Advocate, her death was first deemed a suicide, but the case was reopened 7 years later at the request of investigator Carl Bowen, who had been on patrol and reacted to the initial event. The suicide decision never felt quite right to Bowen, and enough evidence was eventually gathered to prosecute Hendrick in October 2012, with a trial planned for September 2013. A broadcast of Cold Justice, which featured Shelley's case a few days before the trial, demonstrated that she could not have shot herself in the head from the angle taken. Hendrick instead pleaded guilty to a charge of murder after a mistrial. He was given a 22-year prison sentence. The verdict confirms what Shelley's brother, Donald Curley, had known all along: "There was never a doubt in my mind that she didn't commit it," he told the Victoria Advocate. Number 7. Murder of Ranya Rison, 1993. Solved by new testimony. It was unclear what happened to Ranya Rison when she vanished at the age of 16 in 1993, only to be discovered dead a month later in an Indiana pond by a fisherman. The case was judged a homicide and shown on ABC's America's Most Wanted in 1993. It remained unsolved until this year, when her former boyfriend, Jason Tibbs, now 38, was apprehended. According to the NW Times, prosecutors charged Tibbs with strangling her to death after an argument about the two of them getting back together in August. It was the testimony of a former buddy, Eric Freeman, who said he witnessed Tibbs strangle Rison and then helped him dispose of her body in the pond in July 2013. Given that prosecutors promised him immunity, the defense has questioned the reliability of Freeman's statement. It's unclear what the conclusion of the criminal proceedings against Tibbs will be, but Rison's family now has a better sense of what happened when she went missing that evening after work in 1993. Number 6. Murder of Sara Lynn Wineski, 2005. Solved through DNA evidence. Unfortunately, when a homeless or transient individual dies, the police may not pay as much attention to the case. Sara Lynn Wineski, a transient found killed and raped outside a Ronald McDonald house in St. Petersburg, FLA, in 2005, was not one of them. Screams were heard around 11 p.m. on May 21, 2005, according to 10 News, but her body was not discovered until the following afternoon under a deck behind the house. At the site, DNA evidence was collected, but no progress was made until this year, when it was matched to Raymond Samuels, who is 31 years old as of this writing, November 2013. He has been in Ohio prison for attempted murder and kidnapping since 2006 and will be extradited to Florida. Samuels, a vagrant, was also in the neighborhood around the time of Wineski's death, according to investigators. According to investigators, DNA was crucial in solving this crime, and Samuels is now charged with first-degree murder. Number 5. The murders of 3 prostitutes, 1990. Solved through DNA evidence. At the end of October 2013, detectives filed 3 first-degree murder charges against Donna Perry, 61, for allegedly killing 3 prostitutes in 1990 in Spokane, Washington, with a .22 caliber revolver. The killings of Yolanda Sapp, 26, Nikki Lowe, 34, and Kathleen Brisbois, 38, were assumed to be connected at the time of the murders, but the link wasn't discovered until this year, according to the Spokesman Review. Perry, whose real name was Douglas Perry before a 1990 sex transition, was arrested in 2012 on federal accusations of illegal guns possession. The case of the 3 women's killings was reopened in 2005, and DNA evidence was provided in 2009, and routed via a federal database, where it was eventually linked to Perry. Other evidence, such as old-looking women's underwear, was discovered in Perry's wardrobe. She was transferred from a Texas prison to Spokane to face accusations. Number 4. The murder of Maria Ridulph, 1957. Solved through a deathbed confession of a mother. A 72-year-old security guard, Jack McCullough, was arrested for the crime 55 years, after 7-year-old Maria Ridulph was stolen off the streets of Sycamore, Ill, and discovered choked and stabbed to death. According to the Huffington Post, it wasn't forensic evidence that prompted police to reinvestigate McCullough as a possible suspect, but rather his mother's deathbed confession in 1994, in which she admitted to lying about his alibi. McCullough's half-sister gave the cops this information in 2008. McCullough was one of roughly 100 possible candidates, but he appeared to have a strong alibi at the time of the murder. His mother had provided evidence of his whereabouts. However, as a result of her revelation regarding her alibi, police reopened their investigation into McCullough, who was sentenced to life in prison for the killing in 2012. Number 3. The murder of Patricia Beard, 1981. Solved through DNA evidence. Patricia Beard's strangled death in her studio apartment in Denver in 1981 became the 100th rape or murder solved by the Denver Cold Case team in July of this year. Beard, 32, was mentally ill at the time, and had been missing for several days, according to family and acquaintances. According to the Denver Post, she was discovered partially clothed and lifeless on her bed. DNA evidence from a post-mortem crime scene kit was discovered in 2011, and submitted into a database, but no match was found until this year. Hector Bencomo Hinojos, 53, of Pennsylvania, was charged as a consequence of the match. He denied ever meeting Beard, but DNA evidence suggests he had sexual contact with her just hours after she died. His wife portrayed him as an aggressive individual. Bencomo Hinojos is now facing first-degree murder accusations. Number 2, Anna Palmer's murder, 1998. DNA evidence was used to solve the case. According to KSL.com, DNA evidence led to a conviction in the 1998 murder case of Anna Palmer, a 10-year-old girl who was attacked and killed at her own front door in Salt Lake City. The crime was terrible, with many knife wounds to her torso, but investigators had no witnesses, little evidence, and no obvious suspects afterward, according to the TV station. However, forensic experts were called in to help with the investigation in 2009, and they chose to look for DNA samples under the girl's fingernails. They found a match using visible and other light sources to hunt for DNA that did not belong to the girl, and it was matched to a man called Matthew Brock, who lived a block away at the time of her murder and was 19 years old at the time. Brock was already serving a 10-year term for a sex-related felony involving a minor, and he pled guilty to aggravated murder in the killing of Anna Palmer in 2011, and was sentenced to life in prison. Number 1, Roy McCaleb's shooting death, 1985. The case was solved thanks to a confession. The cold case murder of Roy McCaleb, 51, who died in 1985 in Houston from a gunshot wound, was solved thanks to a confession. Carolyn Sue Krison Wilson, then 42 but now 71, said she shot him herself and that his death was not caused by a shooter who raped her and then shot him while exiting the house, as she had claimed previously. In reality, she was charged with his murder in 2008, but the charges were dropped by a judge. According to the Houston Chronicle, a court of appeals reinstated the murder charge, and she elected to plead this time. At the time of his death, she had only been married to McCaleb, her seventh husband, for 2 years. Krison Wilson may have slain McCaleb to take benefit of a life insurance policy, according to McCaleb's daughter. However, due to suspicions about McCaleb's death, that policy was never paid out. In 2013, Krison Wilson, who suffers from dementia, was sentenced to 6 months in prison and 10 years of probation in return for a guilty plea. What do you think of this video? Do let us know in the comments section below. If you enjoyed this video and want to hear from us again, be sure to hit that subscribe button before you go.